Hi, I'm Dr. Frederick Lenz, and I would like to talk to you today about the stress in your life. There's a lot of stress in the world, and we all know it. There's stress from noise, jet planes, cars. There's emotional stress, turbulence between people, between racial groups. There's street crime, poverty, recessions, competition for jobs. The Earth is getting smaller in a way. Our populations keep doubling. The ecosystems are strained. We all experience a lot of stress. And stress is not entirely a bad thing. Stress makes us wary, it makes us conscious in a way. It sometimes causes us to get more out of life if we react to it properly. But sometimes there's just so much stress in our life that we get sick. Our energy levels get terribly low. Stress can, of course, lead to arterial sclerosis, cerebral hemorrhage, a variety of very, very serious diseases that can ultimately cause death. Stress is not new. We like to think of it that way, and there's certainly more stress today in the modern world than there ever was. But even in the time of the cave person, there was a great deal of stress. There were dinosaurs, there were climactic changes, and I'm sure men and women didn't get along probably any better then than they do today. So there was always stress. And your body is very well prepared to handle stress. Scientists call it the fight or flight syndrome. When danger is present, when there's environmental stress or emotional stress, when we feel that we're in danger, or someone we love is in danger, or our possessions are in danger, our body reacts in a wonderful way. Chemicals are released from the endocrine system, adrenaline, noradrenaline, and they cause the heartbeat to speed up. Blood is directed towards the hands and to the feet. So you can either fight or take flight. Now, this is a great system if it's not constantly used. That is to say, if you run into danger once in a while or stress, at that time you can take flight or fight, your heartbeat speeds up, and it saves your life. And then your heart slows down, your body rhythm comes down to a normal pace, and all is well. But in today's world, there's just so much stress that we're all under that the fight or flight response in many people is constantly elicited. So what really occurs is the heartbeat is elevated sometimes hundreds of times a day. Every time there's a loud noise, every time there's emotional stress, every time there's environmental stress. When people are angry with us, when somebody cuts their car in front of ours, when somebody shouts at us to get out of the way, when there's street crime, and just the thought of going outside and walking from here to school is dangerous. Even before we leave the door, we're in a state of stress. There's just so much job competition, times are tough, that the fight or flight response in many people is continually elicited. The heartbeat is raised, and we experience stress syndrome. Stress syndrome means that the body becomes weakened by prolonged and repeated exposure to stress. And there's really not much we can do about it. We can't really get rid of all the jet planes. We can't get rid of the tremendous population that we have. We're trying to clean up our environment, but it's not going to happen overnight. I think it's safe to say that for the rest of our lives, for the lifespan that most of us have, we're going to be dealing actually with more stress every day, not with less stress. So it's necessary for you to take a combative approach to stress, or stress can just simply ruin your life. It can cause anything to be miserable. It can have terrible effects on your health and the health of those around you. So how do you deal with stress? Well, really, there are just two ways. One way that you deal with stress is by avoiding it. And we're going to talk about that in a couple minutes. The other way that you deal with stress is simply by learning to take time to do the opposite. When you are exposed to a lot of hard work, you need to compensate and you need to sleep more and rest more. The same is really true of stress. When your body and mind is exposed to tremendous stress, you must do something to allow yourself to relax even more. It's just a principle of health. If you don't, after a while, stress will deteriorate the quality of your life tremendously. So perhaps thousands of years ago, it wasn't necessary to have relaxation techniques and methods to take stress away. Perhaps a long time ago, in a more natural environment, we were relaxed, we'd encounter danger, we'd deal with it, but then life was tranquil, life was more peaceful. You know that's not the case today. So, to be honest with you, in our modern world, since we can't completely get rid of stress, we have to actually take time to relax. Many of us have to learn to relax, we simply don't know how. Our bodies are uncomfortable. We're uncomfortable with our lives, with our social condition. We're uncomfortable with our neighborhoods. We're uncomfortable with crime. We're uncomfortable with AIDS, with the threat of disease. Will a simple sexual encounter with someone cause your death? I mean, there are just so many things that we're worried about today that we have to take the time to chill out, to relax, and to feel good about things. So, dealing with stress really is a twofold process. Part one is just simply to avoid stress when we can, to have a respect for our body and our mind, to realize that there is a point where the body and the mind begin to break down seriously from stress. Heart attack, hemorrhage of the brain, these things can be avoided. Diet and exercise can certainly help. It's necessary to reduce fat and have a low-fat diet. We need a sensible exercise program. But even exercising can be stressful. It's entirely possible to be so gung-ho about being healthy and having the right exercise program that exercise becomes stressful and it does the opposite of what it's intended to do. A cardiovascular workout is a good thing, but if you approach it too intensely in your mind, if you're too wrapped up from the day's work, if you're too wrapped up from family pressures or from loneliness, if you're just too wired, then anything, a vacation, a birthday party, what's supposed to be a pleasant experience can become a stressful experience. So we really have to teach ourselves how to react to stress. When you can avoid stress, you should. You can avoid stress by thinking about your life, by realizing that there's sometimes you just have to say no. You have to say no to people who are just on your case all the time. You have to think about the quality of your life and the time of your life, and that the body is not an indestructible thing. We have to be conservative in our estimates of what we're able to endure. So I think it's a good idea sometimes to draw a life plan, to take a little time to sit down and just write out what your goals are and what are the primary things that interfere with that, your goals from occurring, from actualizing. The primary goal, of course, should be happiness, to have a good time with our life, whether we live to be 90 or we only live to be 19. The issue is not always how long we live, but how well we live. Were we happy? And if happiness is the goal, then what is it that interferes the most with happiness? I think the average American, I think the average citizen of the planet Earth in this day and age is going to say stress. Stress is the biggest problem. There's just not enough time to get everything done. Between taking the kids to preschool, going to work, dealing with filling out your income taxes, going to motor vehicle, let alone going to traffic court if you get caught speeding. There's just so much going on that we have no time for ourselves. And we postpone things because we care about others and we want them to feel good. We postpone things because we're just too tired, we're too exhausted. We don't take care of ourselves. So I have developed a series of exercises and tapes that will assist a person to relax. These consist of visualization exercises, music to relax to, and videotapes in which natural imagery is blended with very, very relaxing music. It's necessary to change the way we think. Thinking is a strange thing. We think constantly. Our mind is always in motion. And sometimes we get involved with very negative thought patterns. We just get so used to being stressed that our mind is sped up. Our thoughts are going around so fast that suddenly our hands are shaking, our heart is palpitating, and we don't make good decisions. We're exhausted or just confused. It's really necessary to take time to slow down. And we have to slow down our mind. Most stress causes us to be ill. And to avoid that illness, we have to learn to react differently to stress. Let me give you a concrete example of what I mean. Suppose that you're in a situation that can't be avoided. You're at work, you've got a boss who's really on your case. You're living in an area where there's a lot of crime. You're just in a situation that you just realistically cannot get out of at this time. How can you deal with that? Do you have to be a victim to that situation? Well, the mind is a powerful thing. It can become more fearful, and not only is the experience you go through stressful, but just the anticipation of it can cause you great stress, let alone thinking about it afterwards and waiting for it to recur. But you can train your mind to relax in any situation. You can train the mind through simple meditation and visualization techniques to relax, to slow down, to be still. You can learn through association with imagery, with beautiful scenes of nature, to call those scenes up and the peace and stillness in those scenes through visualization and relaxation techniques into your mind at any point in time. In other words, you have to actually educate your mind in a very intelligent way to react during a stressful situation in the proper way. When you're exposed to a stressful situation, instead of reacting adversely, you can learn to take your mind on a kind of a mini vacation. For a few minutes, you can call up images that you have already developed associations with that cause you to relax. This is what a rock video does, really. What is a rock video? A rock video is a piece of music with some film behind it. And what they found is that when people hear a piece of music and they see a rock video and there's a lot of dancing or sexual movements or sometimes violence, that it excites people. And long after they've seen the rock video, every time they hear that piece of music, they remember those images. And every time you hear a song on the radio, if you've seen the rock video, you don't really hear just the music. You remember scenes from the video. And if those scenes were exciting to you, you go out and buy the record. So that's why rock videos are such a big item. They've literally doubled the sales in the music industry. In the same sense, you can do the opposite. You can learn to associate images in the mind that will enable you to relax. You can view scenes of nature on video that are very tranquil, very relaxing, and very refreshing, with very beautiful music behind them. And you can learn to bring that sense of relaxation, that sense of stillness and peace, into any experience, into the middle of the most stressful situation. You can just teach your body to relax through visual association. So the best way to deal with stress is to avoid it. We all know that. But realistically, for most of us on the planet Earth, that's not possible. We're going to be dealing with more and more stress every day in our life. If we don't deal with stress, our health is going to deteriorate, and we're simply not going to enjoy ourselves. We're not going to enjoy this time of our life. The best thing to do is to react positively, to prepare yourself for stress through visualization techniques, through media kits that we've put together that will enable you to just relax and elicit the relaxation response, which Dr. Herbert Benson talks about in his best-selling book. To elicit the relaxation response and cause the opposite of stress, relaxation to occur when and where you need it. And we'll talk about that in just a moment. How do you relax? It's one thing to hear about stress. We all know that there's stress. But how do you really relax in the midst of stress? Well, as I suggested before, relaxation techniques, meditation methods, using associative imagery, these are all fantastic ways to learn to deal with stress. And along with this video, there are a number of cassette tapes. And if you listen to them, you will learn techniques for reducing stress. There are also videos contained, 2 videos, that will enable you to associate natural imagery with relaxation. But aside from these things, which you have now at your disposal, what can you on a day-to-day basis do to reduce stress? Well, I think, aside from all of the exercises included here, which really work, I think the thing that you can do to reduce stress is what I do, and that's to get a deeper understanding of the patterns of life. Now, that may sound a little bit metaphysical, but I don't think it's that. I think it's quite practical. And let me explain what I mean. We are trying to get somewhere. We get up in the morning and we're trying to get to work. We're at work and we're trying to get through the day. We're done with work and we're trying to go home. We're trying to make a certain amount of money. We're trying to be happy. We're trying to get to a place that's wonderful, to our vacation home. We'd like to have a vacation home. We want to get someplace. And I think that that is what causes us to be most stressful. When you understand that it isn't a place that you're getting to that makes you happy, you relax. So, for example, we set up life in our mind. You have your life set up the way it should be. Your day-to-day is supposed to run a particular way. You have your ideas, and I'm sure they're good ideas. You have an agenda for today's experiences. And suddenly, you go out to start the car in the morning, and you're actually up on time, and you're going to work, and the car doesn't start. It just simply doesn't work. And your whole day is shot now. Now you know you're going to be late to work, you're going to get grief from work, projects aren't going to be completed on time. Well, isn't that what life is really about? Life does not run on our schedule. And I think that what causes us to be most stressful is internal expectation. Expectation of what life should be like, how we should feel at every moment. We expect that everything is going to run based upon our desires, that our life should be what we think. And I think that's exceedingly unrealistic. If you'd like to reduce stress, here's something you can do at every moment when you feel stress. When you feel stress, when you feel nervous, when you feel the whole world is closing into you, and there's just, it's impossible, you just can't take it anymore. At that moment, you need perspective. At that moment, you have to laugh at yourself and the agenda that you've created for yourself, because you know, there's nothing you can do about what's happening now. Right now, the new car that you spent so much money for has broken down, and you have to bring it back. Right now, the baby is crying, even though you were just at the bassinet for the 5th time in a row. Right now, you've just heard the worst news that you can imagine, and nothing will change it. You can choose how to react. You can choose at that moment, at that stressful moment, with practice, to be patient and to realize that in each experience there's an opportunity to get off the agenda that we preset ourselves for, since there's nothing we can do about it, and to take the experience and look at it and use it. You know, in acting, there's something that they teach you. When you go out on a stage, you're doing a live performance, and it's theater, and you're out there, and when something goes wrong, and there are hundreds of people in the audience watching you, and you're out there doing a performance, and suddenly there's a loud noise. Somebody backstage drops something. Suddenly somebody fumbles a line. They're supposed to hand you the glass, and you miss, and it drops on the floor. What do you do? Do you run off the stage? Do you get mad at the person? What do you do? Some people at that point freak out. They panic. And that doesn't do any good. What they teach you to do in acting is, they call it using it. They say, use it. If somebody drops a glass, you then say, oh, Edith, the glass dropped. It's an earthquake. You use the moment. When things don't go the way you expect them to, you use that moment and you make it part of your life. Suddenly you've been told that you have, oh my God, the worst thing, cancer. That's the last thing anybody wants to hear. and talk about stress, finding out that you have a disease that is potentially fatal and that you have to go through chemotherapy for, and you won't even know for sure what your lab results are very soon. That can be the most stressful thing. I can remember there was a point in time when I was not feeling well, and I went to see a surgeon, and he told me, it was in his opinion, that I had a tumor. It was a very interesting moment. And I had to go home, and the next day I was going to come back and go through the test to determine if this was the case. But he was pretty convinced that I had a very serious tumor. And so I went home that night, and I was thinking, well, this is it. You know, I'm going to find out that I have a lethal disease here. And it was a very interesting moment, because I got to choose how to react to it. I chose to say, wait a minute, if that's the case, if I only have a few more days or weeks or months, I'm going to use those moments in a way that maybe I haven't been using the time that I've had thus far. Well, I was lucky this time, and he was completely wrong. There was no problem at all. But the situation for me at the time was completely real, as it is any day in my life when something does not go according to my agenda. It is our personal agenda that creates stress more than anything else. The relaxation techniques will help you deal with stressful situations when you use them repeatedly. But the most important thing you need to know is that your personal agenda and the agenda of the universe are two different things. And when something doesn't go your way, when someone you've been kind to treats you unkindly, when the lottery ticket that you counted on doesn't win, when things just don't work out, which usually happens a number of times during the average day, instead of reacting with anger, frustration, disappointment, and gradually, each time something goes wrong, you get more angry, more upset, and you internalize all of that stress to the point where the heartbeat is up, the respiration is increased, your palms are sweating, and you're making yourself sick over something that obviously you can't do anything about. At that point, you have to say, wait a minute, I'm alive, and I can do whatever I want to with this situation and with this life. I can interpret this news as bad news, which is what most people do, and put myself through endless grief and suffering when there's really nothing I can do about it. Actually, when you do that, that will debilitate your ability to react to a situation in a positive manner. So sure, you can say, oh, this is the worst thing, I'm going to get upset. And then you'll find that you won't react as well as you could. Perhaps you can deal with something effectively. But what's most important is when an event occurs, or shortly thereafter, even if you panic initially or you become very stressed out, to say, wait a minute, life has an agenda, and maybe life's agenda is right. Maybe this is an experience that I can grow with and learn from. In other words, relax. Stop trying to make life go the way you want it to go, because it's not going to. When we can assert our will and get what we want, and it's a good thing, of course we should be assertive in a positive way. But when you feel that life is not going your way, when you feel frustrated and out of balance, when absolutely nothing is going your way, at that point you have to laugh. At that point you have to step back from this preordained vision of how your day is supposed to be, how your life is supposed to be, and the way things should be, to reality. And the reality is that life never or rarely works out the way we think. And we shouldn't even expect it to. What we should do is try the very, very best we can to be happy. And happiness doesn't come from getting everything that we want. Happiness doesn't come from having everything work out, because things don't work out, or they work out and then they change again. Happiness comes from being able to step out of our mental agenda, from saying that, wait a minute, the universe has another agenda, and I'm going to use it. I'm going to, like the actor who, when the glass is dropped that was supposed to be handed to him, turns it into something funny, uses it in some way to create a moment, since it's unavoidable, that might be interesting in the play, and then someone has to respond to that. So you need to learn to react to unexpected, adverse circumstances in a new way. And that's by getting off your agenda and saying, wait a minute, stop the camera, hold it. At this time, things aren't going to work out this way. The taxi hasn't come. I missed the plane. There's nothing I can do about it. And all my prepaid tickets are lost. And the vacation is ruined. No, the vacation isn't ruined. The vacation has just begun. Because you can take the situation and the time of your life that you have right now and make it better than it's ever been. If you'll simply unplug from trying to force life to be the way you feel it should be. We have to be able to step out of our agenda. This is the most important thing. When we step out of our agenda, we step into the universe's agenda. This is something I personally learned in the Far East, studying yoga. I studied yoga for many years, and of course the techniques that are in the cassettes that you'll be learning, accompanying this video, are from the world of yoga. And one of the things that I learned from yoga, I think the most important thing that I'd like to pass on to you today, is that the universe has its own will. The universe and life has its own flow. And we try the very best that we can to be in harmony with life. But to try and create too much order, to try and imprint everything in life with our view and our will, to try and resolutely make everything work out to perfection, creates unhappiness. To just be overwhelmed by circumstances isn't necessarily the right way to react either. The right way to react to life's realistic situations and circumstances is with a positive attitude and to realize that we can accept so much. We can accept the death of our loved ones. We can accept our own inevitable death. We can accept the happiness that every new day can bring. As human beings, we're capable of accepting so much. We're so very strong if we draw on that inner strength. But we exhaust that strength by always demanding that life conform to our expectations. On the other hand, when we stop demanding that life conform to our expectations, when we use it, when we take the moments that are unexpected, what you would call the tragedies of life, which of course hurt, but we don't let them destroy us. We find a new strength from them, we find a new resolution, we find something new and interesting about the life process from these experiences, then, at that moment, you'll find that you'll relax. In other words, stress mainly is caused by our reaction. And the meditation techniques are fantastic for giving you the ability I'm discussing now. They give you the space, the power through visual association to relax and to stand back from your own agenda. That's why they work so well. But what's most important from my point of view in dealing with stressful situations, and my life is filled with them, as I'm sure is yours, is an inner understanding about what life is. And I think we're not given that by our society and by the world. What we're given is a sense that everything is supposed to work out the way we think. Every day is supposed to go as planned, and I don't know who thought this up, but it's the most stressful preset condition I can imagine. Instead of realizing that every day we're going to go out and do our best to accomplish what we seek, but there are going to be many setbacks, there are going to be many mislaid items in life. And that we can take each one of those as something to upset us or something to say, well, okay, we're going over here now, life is taking me in a new direction, and we can use that experience. We can use the experience to experience life in a more deep way. Stress is internal reaction, your internal reaction to things that are very often out of your control. When you become most stressed, when stress becomes dangerous and destructive to your health, is when you simply won't accept the world the way it is. So there's a very large conceptual step that a very stressed out person has to make, and that's to let go. To let go to life. When you've tried your best to make it all work out and make the budget work and the checkbook balance and the kids happy and everything run well, and then it doesn't, or it's the exact opposite, everything goes wrong. At that point you have to let it go, because getting upset is only going to make it worse. And you have to practice this. And that's what the relaxation tapes are for. The relaxation tapes will allow you to experience relaxation, a beautiful sense of peace, stillness through music, through imagery. And then you will find, by allowing your body to experience relaxation in a new way, that at those moments of adverse stress, you can call those feelings back, just like our friend does when they listen to the piece of music and they remember the imagery of the rock video. You will be able to bring perspective back into your life and say, wait a minute, stop the camera, stop the action. I'm not in a rush. I don't care if I'm over time. There's something important that's happening here, my life. And my life is not going to be upset by the fact that I have time constraints, that things aren't going the way I want, or that everything is exactly the opposite of what I want. I'm going to take this moment and I'm going to use it to experience existence. I'm alive now, and I don't know what my possibilities are, but I want to find out. It's that attitude that causes us to go beyond stress and to begin to enjoy our lives in the midst of the most adverse circumstances. I'd like to thank you very much for joining me today, and I do hope that you practice the techniques on these cassette tapes, because they really work. The videos are excellent. We had a lot of fun making them. I composed the music myself. Everything is designed to relax you initially when you listen to it and practice it, but to give you the ability to relax in the most stressful situations. I think you'll find these things work.